While the faucets in our RV's bathroom were perfectly okay, they weren't a style we would have picked if we'd had a choice. So when they both started dripping at about the same time, we took the opportunity to replace rather than repair them. It was Costco to the rescue with beautiful Hansgrohe faucets at a great price. Due to the wide variety of brands, styles, materials, and shapes of faucets and sinks, and variations in plumbing systems, your installation may be different than ours. So before starting this project, be sure to check that everything is compatible with your RV. These are the tools we'll be using for our project: a crescent wrench, 7/8 and 5/8 open-end wrenches, Phillips and flat blade screwdrivers, slip joint pliers, a 7/16 deep drive socket, pipe sealant tape, plumber's putty, and two 3/8 to 1/2 inch brass adapters. We'll put links down below in the video description, but again, RV plumbing, faucets, and sinks may vary. We also needed to make a minor modification with our Dremel tool, but it's unlikely you'll need one of these. Start by making sure your RV is disconnected from city water and the water pump is off. We'll be disconnecting the old faucet's copper tubing from our RV's PEX plumbing lines, as well as removing the old sink drain and stopper and replacing them with the ones included with the new faucet. Put something in place to catch as much of the water as possible and remove the P-trap. These plastic parts don't usually require any tools, but if necessary, loosen them carefully with a large slip joint pliers and the P-trap should slide right off. Then pour out the remaining water and remove the plastic nut from the drain pipe. Then we unscrew the retaining nut from the pop-up stopper assembly and remove the horizontal rod from the drain pipe. We unscrewed this lower section of the drain pipe, pushed up on the stopper, and lifted it out. Using the slip joint pliers, loosen the large nut on the bottom of the sink. If the drain pipe starts to spin, you can use another pair of pliers with rubberized handles to hold it in place to stop it from turning. Remove the nut, followed by the washer and the rubber gasket. Then push up on the drain and remove it from the sink. More than a decade of very frugal water usage during lots of boondocking probably made this spot particularly gross. So this is our one opportunity to clean it really thoroughly. With a bucket under the opening, we used an old toothbrush, Q-tips, water, bleach, and anything else we could to clean it within an inch of its life. We loosened the bolt on the stopper rod, then pulled the rod up and out. With our deep socket, we loosened the nuts that hold each side of the faucet in place and removed the flat metal plates that clamp to the underside of the counter. Holding a cloth around each PEX pipe to catch excess water, we loosened and removed the hot and cold water supply lines. Again, no tools were needed for these plastic fittings. Now the old faucet lifts right out. Again, this is another opportunity to clean things thoroughly. Our old faucet was the 3-hole type, but the new one only requires a single hole. So we use the included gasket and decorative plate to cover the 2 that aren't needed. Then feed the water lines and stopper rod down through the opening. Under the sink, we put the rubber and then metal washers over the water lines, followed by this retaining nut. Slide all 3 up the lines and over the stopper rod, all the way up to the underside of the counter. Right here, we ran into a situation that required a little DIY ingenuity. Because our sink is an undermount type, it has a lip that's too close to the opening to allow installation of the washer and retaining nut. This is where our trusty Dremel tool came in handy. We used it to create a little half-moon shaped cutout in the edge of the Corian sink, which allowed just enough space for the washers and nut to sit flush against the underside of the counter. Before tightening it down, make sure that everything is aligned perfectly and held tightly in place. Then firmly secure it from below. This faucet uses 2 screws, one on each side, that clamp the retaining nut to the underside of the counter. Now we use our brass adapters to attach the new fittings to the larger RV plumbing connections. You may or may not need adapters, depending on your faucet and RV plumbing. We'll use our open-end wrenches to tighten the adapters to the faucet fittings. Then we'll connect the adapters to our RV's plumbing, making sure to connect the hot and cold lines to the correct sides. These plastic fittings are designed to be hand-tightened, so only use one wrench here. Connect the other fitting the same way. Next, we dismantle the new drain pipe and apply about 4 or 5 wraps of pipe tape to the inner threads. Always be sure to wrap the tape in the same direction as the threads, so that reassembling the parts won't unwrap the tape. We then reassemble the lower part of the drain pipe, hand tightening only. Now let's remove the nut, washer, and gasket from our shiny new sink drain. Set the drain down into the sink and look underneath. While pulling gently down on the drain to hold it firmly in place, use a felt tip marker to draw a horizontal line on the threads, right where the pipe comes out of the sink. Then remove the drain. The reason we mark the pipe threads is because we need to know exactly where the lower gasket will sit when it's assembled. The threads and the gasket won't mate perfectly, so it will leak if we don't take one additional step. Wrap about 7 or 8 turns of pipe tape around the drain pipe, directly over the top of the line. This creates a good, flat surface for the gasket to seal against. In this particular spot, it doesn't matter which direction you wrap the pipe, since you won't be threading anything onto it here. Now we'll take a chunk of plumber's putty and use our hands to roll it into a cylindrical shape. Be aware that standard plumber's putty can stain some porous materials, like natural stone or plastic. So if your RV sink is made of plastic, either use special non-staining putty or use high-quality clear silicone caulk instead. Now we'll wrap our putty around the rim of the drain, making sure it's shaped into one continuous unbroken circle. This is probably more than needed, but the excess will squeeze out when we tighten it into place. Place the drain into the bottom of the sink and gently press down on it from above to keep it in place while installing the gasket underneath. Slide the nylon washer against the gasket. Then install the large lock nut. Before tightening the drain into place, we'll reattach the lower portion of the pipe to the upper section. No pipe tape is needed here because there's an internal gasket already in place. Tighten it as firmly as you can by hand, again preventing the drain from rotating by using the rubber-coated handle of a pair of pliers if needed. Once the sections are tightly connected, rotate the entire assembly so that the opening for the stopper rod faces straight back toward the wall. Hold the pipe with one hand while using your slip joint pliers to tighten the nut. The nylon washer allows the lock nut to slide smoothly against the rubber gasket without damaging or twisting it. Tightening the drain has pressed the putty firmly into place. Now you can just clean away the excess with your finger and put it back into the container for future use. Align the stopper so that the hole at the bottom faces straight back, and place it into the drain. Insert the horizontal rod into the drain and finger tighten the retaining nut. Moving the rod up and down should open and close the drain. If you successfully inserted the rod through the opening at the bottom of the stopper, it will prevent it from being lifted out of the drain. Now connect the vertical stopper control rod to the horizontal rod. Move it up and down to see if it opens and closes the drain completely. If not, you can adjust the height of the stopper up or down by moving the connection point higher or lower on the vertical rod. Slide the lock nut over the drain pipe. Put the trap back into place and tighten both nuts. Again, these plastic parts only need to be hand tightened. Remove the aerator screen from the front of the faucet. If there's any debris in the line from having just worked on everything, we don't want it clogging the screen. Turn on the city water or water pump, and turn the faucet on warm to get water up through both the hot and cold lines. Let the water run on high for 20 or 30 seconds. Then shut it off. Look beneath the sink and check both incoming water lines, which are of course under pressure, and the drain pipes for leaks. Check every connection carefully. Now reinstall the aerator into the front of the faucet, tightening it gently with an open-end wrench. Last but not least, turn on the hot water. And then the cold water, just to be sure you didn't mix up the lines when reconnecting them. Our bathroom sinks are now updated to go along with the new Hansgrohe faucet we installed in our kitchen last year. It's little updates like this that keep our 12-year-old motorhome working and feeling like new. And it was all reasonably priced, since the cost of labor for installation was zero. Thanks for watching, and safe travels.